in the midst of all of this, we continue to have health drama. And I was pretty done in by Sunday. And we had a lovely day just hanging out. And I finished my most recent knitting project, which I'm going to take you over so you can see on my dress form here. And so I made it originally so that it would be like that, but knowing me, I will probably wear it with we're so terrible at this, with the neckband pulled around like that. And I've bought, and I'm awaiting the arrival of some stick pins so that I can put the jewelry that I create for it on those, and then I can pin it however I want. And I kind of like it with this side ruched up a little bit, which is what's going to happen, when you put something on and when you move your arms and everything changes. So if you haven't seen it, here's the button jewelry that I did for my other piece that I've just finished. And this one, I didn't finish the knitting so recently. I just finished. And I'll put this up here. It's got long wings because I wanted something that you could style around the neck. And so I have no sense of direction, so I can't really tell which way to go. So there it is. And then the pin goes on it like that. And I'm very pleased with that. So I'm working on a variation of this, which is a cowl. Just put it on. I love this one. I love the colors. So this has kind of a stand-up neck, and then it goes from flat or round to flat. And I just love wearing this one. So now I'm doing one that this is fingering. That's more like, it's like DK and a light DK in this fabulous gold color. And I will I have some, I think this ribbon is going to go into it. I may have to get a lighter color. We'll see. And so I knit this a couple of years ago. I never wrote down the pattern. So I'm writing the pattern down and realized when I got to the split that I had done some tricky little thing and that I had to really pay attention to how I did it so that I could write the instructions. So that is in the works. I'm enjoying knitting that. I'm on the flat part now, so it's going back and forth. And yeah, I'm not really fussy about whether I work flat or in the round. So this, the one I just finished, it's called Arno, like the Arno River in Florence. It's got these great closed cables, which are actually very fun and easy to do. And I've written the instructions for cabling both with and without a needle. I prefer without. So you make the neckband and it's a big curve. And so there's short rows in between the cables to create that curve. And then the lace, and this is worsted weight, a little heavier than I usually work. And so you start at this is just one repeat plus the edge stitches, and you start increasing and where you're joining it to the neckband. And it gets, it's like 15 inches wide, I think, at the widest part. And then I realized I was running out of yarn, and I only have 2 skeins, so it I had to decrease, which I ended up loving. And I kept doing short rows so that it's just got this big curve to it, which you cannot see on my phone, but that's kind of what it's like. And this scallop is worked at the beginning of the row. So you start with 1 stitch and you go out to 5 and then back down to 1 in the 12 rows of the pattern. Um, so literally when you get done and I put the buttonhole in the last cable and I just have these ends, and this is literally a yard I have left. So it's 380 yards. It's an alpaca um, merino blend. It's really lovely. So I think I would probably put the buttons like up here, one in the buttonhole and maybe one here or down here. And I tend to wear things in the front. Um, but today it's not really hot, but also not really cold. So it's a little heavy for that, but I think it'll be fabulous during the fall. And so I'm working on the jewelry to go on this and can't use the yarn because I only have like a foot and a half left. I may be able to do something, but not much with this. And right now, my problem is that, and this, I think it made a pretty nice join that you can't tell that that was done as I went. Um, but I want to use these freshwater pearls that I have in there. I need to find a needle that's got a small enough. So, which takes me to 100 days of getting to know your future self. So, this is something that I ponder and work on all the time. And it's because your future self feels like it's someone far away, but it's really just right there. And this really hits home when you're 70. That like you got way more behind you than you have in front of you. And it's very important to me that I am enjoying my life. I have a wonderful life. And it's easy to forget that this is it. As far as I know, there is no dress rehearsal. We are, in fact, living our lives. And our lives right now are very stressful because of, if you live in the US, we have an insane government and food costs are going up. This is hard for people. We bought gas yesterday and it was over $5 a gallon. We live in Washington. There's a lot of gas tax here. And that's hard for people. Mitch and I have one car. We haven't had the same car, but we've had one car that we share since 1999. And we take public transportation and walk and just we live close. When we bought where we live, we bought it because it was close. And this morning I walked down to the grocery store and back. And we make a bi-monthly trip to the grocery store that we really like, but we've got this one here. And like last Sunday, I walked up to we're on 10th, walked up to 15th to go to the health food store to get Mitch's probiotic. And so, buying gas is like something we do every 2 or 3 months. It's not something that we're doing every week. But I can imagine what that's like if you have to buy because you live someplace where you're commuting all the time. And the commute has been just a bear here because they've been working on the highway. And it's been like an hour or more for people coming from outside the city to get in. So, fun fact, Mitch and I have always lived within 4 miles of where we worked. I used to like turn down jobs because they were too far away. um, and it was like, yeah, I can't do the commute. It's too hard. But we've kind of kept ourselves contained, and we've never had children, so didn't have to accommodate that. But so we've always chosen to live in the city, close to things. I went downtown on the bus on Monday to meet friends downtown for lunch, and then I came home on the underground. I walked back from the station. So who is that? Oh, Catherine. I love you. You are always reposting my posts. Which I truly appreciate because social media is a challenge for me. And I think all of my people are gone this week because I've gotten like zip. Um, anyhow, so what was I talking about? Future self. Um, so I'm always doing these little things and I'll tell you two sides of this. So I do lots of little things, like I might say when I'm down in the kitchen, doing my morning chores sort of thing, I'll say, well, I need to put Mitch's milk in. This is a conversation I'm having with myself. They are very active. Um, Let me see how many towels I can get folded in the minute that his milk is heating in the microwave. And I just create these little challenges. I'm very competitive with myself. So, and I'm interested in how long things take. Um, and so I've done that for years. And everything I do is like a routine. So in the morning, I get up, go downstairs, put the coffee water on, turn the NPR on, grind my coffee beans, start getting ready to make breakfast, load things into the dishwasher, stack everything in the sink so that I can wash my pots and pans. I do nothing after 7 o'clock at night. Um, so everything just stacks up, dinner dishes, all of that. And then I put in like a load of laundry. If it's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, it's towels. If it's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I do clothes. If there's not enough, then I don't do anything. Um, right now, I'm in my summer prep where I'm putting food into the freezer for the winter. So I cut up fruit in the morning while I'm making our breakfast. And, I might cut up tomatoes and put them in the freezer. Just, I have all this stuff. And I have it set up so that I don't have to think about it. It's just like, okay, it's Monday, I'm doing the towels. Or, while I'm making breakfast, I will cut up 2 pints of fruit. And what I love about it is that it gives me lots of space for my brain to be creative because I'm not thinking about that stuff. I'm just doing it. And so I realized that this was like a really cool thing and that I can make this something. So I could have more creative time. So I like prep food on the weekends. So it's really easy to cook meals during the week. I love to cook, but I'm really not interested on weeknights. I also love to eat, so it's really important to me what I'm eating. And then I do these things like I'll say, well, I need to get more exercise, so I'm going to do, a Pilates 20 to 30-minute workout for like 4 days a week. Well, then I find out, well, I can't really do 4 days a week. I think I should, but I don't really have the time to do that. So then I cut back to 3, and I set up these little experiments. So what can how can I make it so that I just do this without all that internal resistance? Because who the hell wants to exercise? And so I saw this book a while ago called Tiny Experiments, and it's written by a woman who was a programmer and project manager at Google, I think. And she realized her life was not very satisfying, although she was successful. And so she quit and tried a couple things and realized what she really loved was kind of like, why do we do things that we do? And how can we motivate ourselves to do things we don't want to do? And that sort of thing. So she got a doctorate in neuroscience and wrote this book called Tiny Experiments. And it's really just about how setting up little experiments can create, like what I've described, the routine, the doing the exercise that you want to do, but also don't want to do, prepping food, And so one of my problems is that I think I should be really perfect at things. And, that like exercising 3 days isn't good enough. You should be doing 5 or 6. Like, in what world am I ever going to do that? Um, and so one of my challenges is like, what can I do now? It's going to get me the benefit of exercising, but it's going to fit in my day as it is right now. And so that's really what the 100 days is all about, is figuring out how you balance what you need to do right now, which is real, and what you need to do for the future, which is also real. But there has been some science around this where they say, if you don't understand who your future self is, it's like, saying, excuse me, I'm going to exercise for a stranger. So you don't know who that is. And we are not generally inclined to do things for strangers. It doesn't benefit us. So it's part like an opportunity. If you want, you can explore your values and what you want for that future person. But also, like, what does wanting to be perfect or to do more than you can do for either your present self or your future self? Because you're going to end up getting bitter and twisted about it, or not doing anything and laying on the couch eating chips. And because you just haven't been realistic. And, our whole culture is set up around kind of not being realistic about what our lives really are. So, I've done a couple of 100-day challenges, and they've both been, you just pick what you want to work on. You don't even have to tell anybody if you don't want. And I kind of didn't even pick something. I have, like, chipped a nail, it's just driving me crazy. Um, I just showed up every day, and that was my entire goal, was to, like, go to the Facebook group and say, "Hey, I'm here." And, maybe, like, I've made some progress on a project that I'm really happy about, or, um so you don't have to do anything more than show up. And sometimes just, like, 100 days is really a long time. It's 3 months plus 10 days or 8 days, depending on how long the months are. Um, it's a long time. It's like a whole quarter of the year, a little bit more than that. So just showing up every day is huge. I will not be using a Facebook group because I don't really use Facebook anymore. I will have a group on my education platform, I think. Um, and I'm trying to figure out how to do something on Substack, but they are kind of not set up to do what I want them to do. Um, so showing up is huge, but I will also give you some tools. So, like, if you want to do a tiny experiment, how do you set it up? Like, literally, you have to write a sentence. That's it. It's so easy to do. You have to give it a time frame, and you have to be specific, about what you're going to do. And then, so let's say you say, "I'm gonna work on this for 2 weeks." And maybe it's that I go to bed every night at 10:30, um, which is good for your sleep hygiene. So, all you have to do is say, beginning on Monday, I'm going to go to bed at 10:30 every night, except on weekends when I'm going to stay up till 11:30 because I can sleep in. Okay, so that's your entire experiment. And then you kind of keep track of what's going on. Like, did you actually stick to your schedule? Was having a definitive time helpful to you? You can just be mulling these things over. And then at the end of the experiment, you do what Anna Laurie calls plus minus next. So you say, what were the pluses of doing this? I got better sleep, whatever. The minuses were, I have really a hard time making myself go to bed at the same time. Um, Although, another plus by choosing the same time is you can set your phone to tell you to do that. Um, and what are you going to do next? So, like, do I want to build on this or am I done? Or what often happens with me, I made this too big and I need to spend a couple more weeks on it, but scale it back. And I'm a big thinker, taking my shoes. Um, and so I always want to do so much. And so then I sometimes have to say, well, that was interesting, but now I'm going to make it much narrower and much smaller and be a little bit more intentional about the details. So that is a really good process. And of course, you don't have to have actually set up an experiment to do that. You can just say, like, I've noticed when I go to bed on time that my next day is better or whatever. Um, I don't get as much done if I go to bed on time because I am so used to catching up in the middle of the night. Um, And then looking at things that you could make routine, like I described about my day. So, additionally to all the things I do in the morning, so then I have to make lunch for Mitch and me. I get cranky if I don't eat. He needs to eat because he's not well. And then I have to cook dinner at night. And so, like, I do everything kind of on a schedule lately. He's asked to eat later because he needs to eat snacks during the day. And, so what do I do with that extra half an hour before I fix dinner? I'm already sitting down at the dining room table because I've gone down at 5 o'clock to do the music hour, which is when I like organize my day or work on writing a pattern or sort through my piles of paper. And so the music hour is from 5 to 6. Typically, he watches what he calls boy TV, which is things I don't want to watch, from 6 to 6:30, and then dinner happens someplace between 6:30 and 7. But now we're eating at 7:30, so I have an extra half an hour in there, and I don't like to waste time. And I also want to give him the chance to watch his shows. So now I have to think not only what am I going to do down at the dining room table, but what am I going to work on in that extra half an hour? Am I going to spend that time organizing a project or, shuffle through my papers longer or plan my next week? Or tonight I'm going to finish making my lemon ricotta cookies. So often I have something like that I can just fit into that, or maybe I've got laundry I need to fold, whatever. But anything I can make routine, I don't have to think about. And then I can use all that time for creating new projects and doing what I like to do, which is pursuing my creative ideas or working on making things fit better. So I don't really know how to make this interactive. And I don't know whether anybody has any questions or wants to say something. I think I can ask somebody to join me if you want to chat, if you're still here. And otherwise, none of my kind of usual people are here, so I won't bore you with Mitch's health. And which is one of the fun things about being a senior citizen. All of a sudden, things start breaking that you didn't really anticipate were going to break. And I'm really hopeful that tonight I get to have a martini. So I haven't had a martini in 3 or 4 weeks because Mitch had cataract surgery. And so he wouldn't drink because he is a complete rule follower. And so I don't drink my martinis by myself. Sometimes he has scotch instead of a martini. But so I've queried whether we're going to have a martini tonight. I'm very hopeful. But I do have 2 more nights in the weekend that I could have one if he decides not tonight. And that's typically what I do around 6:30 on Friday night. I make a huge vodka martini and we watch TV and work on those. And then I make dinner. So I have to chop everything that needs to be chopped before I start drinking. He doesn't like me to have a knife in my hand afterwards, after I've started drinking. And I kind of wander through the night. And I think Project Runway may be starting up. So that's my favorite thing to watch on Fridays. But sometimes we watch a movie. Yeah, we spend a lot of time on the couch, but I can't really drink, or I can always drink. I can't really knit when I'm drinking. So I think tonight I may work on my handwork, my hand stitching, I've been really struggling with that. I want to embroider, but I'm really terrible. And I got this great book by Alabama Shannon, who's famous for her hand stitched things, and I cannot follow her directions. They just do not work with my brain. So I found another book that I have that has much more basic instructions, which I think is what I need. Um, and so maybe I'll work on that tonight. So the new book, which I had on my shelf, I'd completely forgotten about it, has this thing called couching, which is where you take like a piece of yarn or something and then you stitch over it. And I really like the look of that. So I think I'm going to try to pull some threads out of the linen that I'm going to use and do some couching and see what that looks like. I often have these ideas, I don't know that much about embroidery, so no freaking idea whether it'll work or not, but it's fun and it's something I can do because I don't care as much. Um, when once I've dived into my cocktail. Um, so your name is Lyod, and yeah, you can see, like, trying to look at your little tiny picture and can't see. Well, thank you for subscribing. So I do these lives on Fridays usually, and basically Fridays if I'm in town. Um, so sometimes I don't do them if we're traveling, or if we have something else social on, but it's actually a really great way for me to kind of look at what I did during the week because I tend to just always be working away on things and I don't always have a sense that I'm completing things. I've been completing things recently, um, but my projects tend to take months and months and months. So it's a good way for me to kind of catch up with myself and give myself a little credit for what I get done. Um, and I'm usually standing here at my standing desk. I haven't done a studio tour for a while, so maybe I'll do one. You can see that step stool back there. Mitch borrows it, but he's afraid to put it back where it belongs because he's afraid he'll knock something down. And my studio is always just brimming with stuff. And I had to move a few piles of things so that I could stand here. And often on a Friday night, I get distracted right around now because everybody is out. I live in Seattle. And so people get off work and they have to walk their dogs. And, I don't know whether they've been someplace working or whether they are working at home. There's a big apartment complex just across the street. Um, and people in Seattle have dogs. And so there are all these dogs that have to be walked. Doesn't ever look like the owner is that thrilled about having to walk their dog. And then people run a lot. And so there's usually like a very interesting parade of people going by. But um, long weekends, people just leave town. So, which I love because I stay in town. Um, And so I'm not seeing very many people. I'm not even seeing any hummingbirds. I have a hummingbird feeder, and I am often visited by them during the day. We have two other feeders in the backyard, and they've really taken a shine to a new one that we put up and seem to spend most of their time in the back where it's considerably cooler than it is here, where I have a tile patio right outside my window, and the sun would be this direction, east, and so it's coming across. And although it ends up in the west where the backyard is, but there are lots of trees and plantings to keep the backyard cool. So there goes somebody with their child in a stroller, but literally not much going on here. And last night, when I came to close the door of my studio before bed, there was not a car on the street. And, it's a arterial, so it's usually pretty busy. There was no one. I have literally no idea where everybody goes. A lot of people that we know have homes east of the mountains for skiing, cross country skiing. And I quite honestly have no idea why anyone would do that. But I live my own life. So I always want to be where things are happening. And I always say I'm not going to participate, but I want to see that it's going on. Um, so a lot of people take off for long weekends and go to their second homes. We do not have a second home, and not interested, never have been. It seems like a really stupid way to spend your money to me, but that's just me. And by not having any of those things, second homes, children, second car, I've been able to pursue my creative passions rather than having to always have a job that paid the mortgage. So anyhow, on that happy note, as my mother would say, my mother who is long dead at this point, but we still say her things, I think it's time to end. And if you came late, I get a recording of this, which I will then take out all the pauses and the tomorrow and then post it up on Substack. So you can go to, it's called Jill Rambles on my menu bar. And if you want to watch any of the previous ones, they're all up there. Well, I guess not all of them, because I think things go behind the paywall after 6 weeks, but many of them are. And I'm kind of rethinking the whole paywall thing, but who knows? I'm always thinking about things and never have time to change anything. So, and if you ever see something, because you can find things in the search, and then if you can't get to it, just shoot me a message and I'll just tell you whether or not I'm willing to share. So have a wonderful long weekend if you're in the US. If not, I hope your weekend is relaxing since you probably don't have a crazy president. And enjoy these last days of summer. I know I always feel at Labor Day like, what? We haven't had enough summer yet, because our summer doesn't start until like July. Kind of looks like this year we may go in through September, but who knows? Anyhow, have a good one. Thanks for coming. Bye.